Jai Sadgurudeo. Good morning to all of you. Welcome to weekly English Satsang organized by North American Institute of Vihangam Yoga. My name is Suryanshu and I have joined this Satsang from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Before I proceed further, I would like to offer my prayers to the lotus feet of Sadgurudev. Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. In the current times, our day to day life has become busy in fulfilling our physical and mental requirements and social responsibilities. In this fast paced routine life, the requirements of the soul are often forgotten. So, first, I would like to congratulate each one of you for taking some time from your busy schedule to fulfill the requirements of your soul through satsang.
We are blessed today to have an experienced practitioner, Dr. Subhash Chandraji, who is joining us from New York and has a firm grasp over Sadgurudev's Siddhant and core principles of Brahma Vidya. Dr. Subhash Chandraji will help unravel one of the most enigmatic concepts, which is quantum physics and spirituality. Understanding this will help us comprehend the relevance of these two intertwined topics at a deeper level. I would like to now hand over to Dr. Subhash Chandraji. Over to you.
Jai Sadgurudeo, and thank you, Sri Ansuji. Before I begin, thanks to Silvaji for such a wonderful Yogasana session, and Warriors of the Week for keeping us motivated and inspired. My prayers in the holy feet of Sadgurudeo. Akhandamandalakaram vyaptam yen characharam Tadpadam Tarsitam Yena Tasmai Sri Guruve Namaha. Our topic for last few weeks have been on Atma Vivechan, and the way MP Singh Uncle Ji has been explaining it, it has been a great learning experience. The simplicity and breaking things to its finest level has been very helpful. So, being a man of science, and I have always heard about quantum physics, was trying to relate and see how someone who has nothing to do with meditation or sadhana, how can quantum physics be used to explain it to them? And since I do not belong to a physics background, so anyone in the audience, our revered audience who are also speakers sometime or the other, please feel free to correct me if I'm rendering a conception which is wrong. And I apologize beforehand because these conceptions are my own interpretation of what books say. So today's topic is not about proving spirituality through science, nor explaining science through spirituality. More importantly, it is about understanding the limits of intellect and the role of direct experience. Quantum physics has brought the modern science only to a point of humility, whereas Veda begins exactly from that humility. I'm beginning the session with the fact that where the science reaches its boundary, Vihangam Yoga begins its practice. For non-practitioners, it may be very difficult to grasp this. And hence, my focus is on simplifying what we talk about quantum physics by basic day-to-day examples. And in doing so, with help of the audience, even I get to understand things better. So quantum physics is the science of how nature behaves at its smallest level. Quantum is all about the smallest, the tiniest, the basic, for example, electron, photon, energy, the fields, and the forces. So whenever we talk about quantum and the word physics, we are talking about measuring something which is transferable, something that can be conserved. What we need to remember is that quantum physics explores the outer limits of matter. And what meditation does, it explores the inner limit of experience. However, they both meet at one insight, and that insight is reality is subtler than it appears. At the tiny scale, the rules that we experience in day-to-day life do not apply. We are limited in this physical realm to experience things with the help of our 5 sense organs. Quantum physics only explains how reality behaves when it becomes extremely small, subtle, and energetic. So that understanding would again be based on our intellect. We cannot still comment on things which we don't see, and eyes sees those about which we know some things. Quantum physics addresses questions like, what is the matter really made up of? And at the smallest level, as it says, matter is mostly an empty space, and what feels solid is actually energy and motion. For some people, it may sound counterintuitive, but this explanation has no questions. It is the way it is. What appears fixed may be dynamic beneath the surface, which means that what we see is not always the complete reality. Reality is deeper than its appearance. For example, imagine that universe is a vast ocean, and we are all just different waves on the same ocean. We do look like separate waves from the surface, but at the deepest level, we are all made of the same water and are interconnected. So this is just an analogy for us to understand, because some things cannot be explained by the way they are, but only by analogy. Now, what is important here is that when the lamp of the knowledge is lit, ignorance dissolves naturally, and meditation, it is that illumination. For example, when we enter a dark room, We feel uneasy. We bump into furniture. We are unsure where to step. Now someone turns on the light. Nothing has changed in the room. The room is as it is. The table or the chair, they are still there, placed in corners or wherever they are. But what changes is our experience. Our experience changes completely. So similarly, life does not always change through efforts, but it changes through awareness. That is the most important. What are we aware of? So in other words, ज्ञान दीप प्रज्वलित होत ही अज्ञान तम नशाए. Listening to it from a meditational spiritual perspective, meditation is like turning on the light. Vihangam Yoga does not change the world outside. It refines the awareness within. Now, quantum physics discovered that observation matters. But Vihangam Yoga teaches us how to become aware consciously, how to observe consciously. And there comes the difference. For quantum physics, the question is, why is light sometimes a wave and sometimes a particle? So here the core concept is that uncertainty is fundamental. We can never know everything at once. And some uncertainty is built into the reality itself. But when we know, or what we know, is often incomplete, and how we observe influence our experience. For example, in the same room, if the observer did not know what is furniture, did not know what is table and chair, it would try to make some sense based on the prior experience of what trees or trees barks look like. And if the table and chair are wooden and they have some pattern, the observer will relate it to their experience of patterns in the bark of the trees, that these things seem to be something derived from the trees. So you see, even if things are there the way it is always about what the observer knows. Because what we know is often incomplete. So how we observe influences our experience. In this case, since I did not know what are tables and chairs, so how we are perceiving even those tables and chairs influences our experience. So for someone who has never seen those, it may be just a space where instead of trees, there are logs of wood shaped differently. So why do particles behave differently when observed? Remember, this does not mean that thoughts create reality. Or this does not mean that the thoughts create reality. It just means that observer cannot be fully separated from the observed. It is our a way of engaging that matters. The mere act of measurement, the mere act of observation affects the outcome. So the entire observation is dependent upon us, the observer. For example, think about we plant seeds in the planter in the garden. The seeds represent all possibilities in your life, because the seeds can grow even if the seeds are of same plant, but can the looks, the way they grow, all of those will look different. So imagine that those seeds are the possibilities in our life, and our attention, focus, and intention, the observer effect, are like the sunlight and water. The same sunlight and water, the same attention, focus, and intention that help a specific seed to sprout and grow into a real tangible plant. So what we see is the tangible plant. We do not see the process undergoing it, the changes happening within. What we see is what we knew about seeing, and so we see it. So what you focus on is what grows in your reality. I was focused, attentive, and my entire intent was getting a house, let's say. So I would not see the efforts that has been put in building a house. My mind will be focused towards the house that I want to get. In other words, the mind in itself, and I'm just deviating from the core topic of discussion, the mind in itself is the cause of both bondage and liberation. Now, it is an experiential instruction. And quantum physics, in its own way, has discovered that observer is not separate from the observed. This is quantum physics, but what Vihangam Yoga teaches us is to refine the observer itself. Means our awareness changes, and so is our observation. So it's very important to understand what quantum physics explains us and what is the role of Vihangam Yoga when we talk to someone. Another concept that we talk about is why can two particles remain connected across distance? So here the concept is that separation is not absolute at its deepest level. The connection is fundamental, not optional, which means everything is connected with everything. Again, trying to understand with some very basic example, and these examples may not be explaining the concept to its fullest, may not be 100% accurate, but my intent is to understand rather than trying to be accurate. If you strike one tuning fork, the another identical tuning fork nearby begins to vibrate on its own. No effort, no touch, just resonance. So when the practitioner becomes inwardly calm through Vihangam Yoga, that calm naturally affects others. And this is not a magic, it is the alignment. Inner stillness has a quiet influence. When Swamiji speaks, and I am sure you all would have also experienced it, you see everything sounds still. Before that, everything was noisy. And when he speaks, there's a stillness, and all you hear is Swamiji's voice, whatever he is saying. So it is His Holiness's ability to create that alignment, because he being the biggest tuning fork, if we have even the slightest qualities of a tuning fork, we will resonate, and we do resonate. As I understand it, and if I'm wrong, please correct me, that when we meditate early morning in the Brahm Muhurt as our Brahm Muhurt warriors, so that resonance happens. The interconnectedness is felt by many. People start having experiences. They have vibrations in their body. You get that vibration in your body, which you can't explain where it came from, how it came from. So this spiritual act has been explained through quantum physics at its base level, that everything is connected. Everything is aligned. More important is how still we are. The more we become still, the more we get into resonance. I remember from Uncle Ji's talk from yesterday, reverse magnification. He kept using that word, and I'm not sure if I'm using it correctly. Where in spirituality, you start leaving everything. The more you leave, the sukshma, the minuter you become, the more you are connected with what your goal is. And there they say that tark vitark ati dur hai, anubhav hai praman. So here comes the limitation of science. We keep using our intellect to explain things, but spirituality is only experience. Logic has its limits, but experience is the real proof. Vihangam Yoga does not argue, does not get caught up into tark vitark and trying to explain things. It's all about inviting you to experience. Consider the intuitive connection you might feel with a loved one. Maybe Swamiji's connection that I discussed for Brahma Muhurt may not sound something with which everyone could or can resonate. Then consider a deep intuitive connection you might have with a loved one, where you just know something is wrong. Something is wrong with them, even if they are far away. You're talking about someone in India, you are sitting here, and you feel something has happened, and you call your parents, your family. What is that? That is, they explain it is quantum entanglement, which suggests the kind of instant, non-physical link is how everything in the universe operates at its core. What it tells us is that physical distance might be an illusion, and we are all profoundly linked in an invisible web. Science shows that reality is subtle. Vihangam Yoga allows us to experience that subtlety directly. Quantum physics does not explain the soul, because the soul is not an electron, photon, or a particle, or a form of energy. Quantum physics uses words like field, energy, wave, but spirituality uses words like light, vibrations subtle. We talk a lot about vibration in Swarveda. अक्षर में कंप और आप जब साधन करते हैं तो कंप. The importance of vibration has been discussed over and over again. So even if we are trying to explain spirituality from quantum physics, it is not doable. Why? Because quantum physics studies matter and energy. And what is the spirituality or the science of consciousness or the study of soul is? It's the science of consciousness. Quantum physics is objective measurement. Everything has to be measured, conserved, replicated, reproducible. But when it comes to soul, it's a subjective experience. It is the awareness-based event or knowledge, whereas quantum physics is instrument-based. If you have an instrument to establish the physical reality of an object, only then it is real. If not, it is not real. The same is talked about inner light perception. What is inner light perception? Is it hallucination? Is it an imagination? Is it a thought in which you are so focused on seeing a light that you see it? Or it is an awareness-based experience. So the science cannot explain that, how someone gets inner light perception in the phase of meditation. So quantum physics looks outward towards matter and energy, but Vihangam Yoga points inward towards consciousness and the soul. Remember, quantum physics cannot give you liberation, meditation can.
మీనింగ్ఫుల్ గా మాట్లాడాలి.
ఆల్సో ఏంటి మన విద్య జ్ఞానం ఎవరిపాటు రావాలి, ఏం చెప్తాం, ఎవరి మాట వినరు కదా. అవన్నీ తెలిసినప్పుడు కూర్చోబెట్టి జ్ఞానబోధ ఎవరికి చేస్తాం, ఎవరిని బట్టి ఉంటుంది. ఇప్పుడు వింటే మరి వెళ్తా అంటే చెప్తారు, అది నేను ఎందుకు ఇందులో నేను స్టిల్ ఉంటున్నా.
Hello, please keep muted yourself. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayaji. So if we once again understand the quantum physics and the soul, we can never measure what happens in your yogic states, because the science is based on the matter, the energy, and the instruments that can only measure or understand matter or energy like sound, heat, light. But Vihangam Yoga is about inner peace, subtle awareness, inner light, realizing consciousness and inner self. We talk a lot about vibration. Understand it this way. When drum vibrates outside, you hear sound. But when vibration is inside, you feel calm. And I'm sure many of you have experienced during the state of meditation, when you vibrate, when there is a vibration, you feel very different. And that vibration, you can only experience. It's experiential. It's not a physical one. If I try to reproduce it on my own by something, it's not doable. Because this vibration that happens is not energy in the physical sense. So it cannot be measured. What is it? It is a manifestation of consciousness itself. As NP Uncle Ji was talking about it yesterday, that the more we become subtle and subtler, the more we are in connection with our real self. I'm not quoting his exact words. I'm trying to bring it to the same inference. His words are very difficult for me to replicate. In other way to understand this would be, just as a lamp flame vibrates gently in the wind, the soul vibrates within and reveals its own light when the mind is still. So if the vibration you don't feel or it is not happening, it's just because the mind is not still. Only when the mind becomes still, you feel the vibration, which is subtle, experiential, and helps with a spiritual realization. Although both the physical vibration and the vibration in the soul or in the inner sense of self, they both involve movement and rhythm, but they are not the same. There's a big difference. When there is vibration in the matter, it is measurable, it is physical, it helps science to understand the world and its creation and whatnot. But when the vibration is within, it is about inner awareness, clarity, and realization. Meditation allows one to explore the inner reality, subtle vibrations, and inner light. In other words, there is a reality beyond what the five senses and mind can perceive. Once again, a reference from yesterday, and NP Uncle Ji was talking about how sukh the soul is, and he quoted a very good quotation in terms of what exactly the vibration, the soul is beyond intellect, beyond mind, and whatnot. So, quantum physics also tells us that there is a reality beyond what the five senses and mind can perceive. But the difference is, in quantum physics, it talks about the perception of matter and energy beyond the five sense organs. It talks about experimentation, mathematics, and the core that reality is subtler than it seems. That is also Vihangam Yoga. The reality is subtler than it seems. But remember, the direction, one goes outward, one goes inward. So both, the goal, the ultimate in both is reality is subtler than it seems. But with Vihangam Yoga, it's about consciousness and soul and direct inner experience. Both challenge the assumption that our senses and ordinary reasoning fully capture reality, as by now we have established it very well. A simple example, for example, our hand. Hand is made of matter, atoms, electrons, protons, neutrons, molecules, cells, tissues, and finally hand. Quantum physics studies the behavior of these tiny particles, their interactions and energy, but it does not explain the purpose, intention, or action. It only explains the structure and behavior of matter. As Uncle Ji was talking yesterday, bhogitritva or krititritva, I'm not saying it correctly, and how the Atma and our mind, our physical belonging, how they are separate in terms of how one cannot do without the other. Action, intention, and consciousness arise from the soul, a subtle conscious entity, and not from the matter itself. So, quantum physics would explain what the hand is made up of, how it functions physically, while Vihangam Yoga teaches what the hand does with intention or awareness which comes from the soul. So even if one has the hand, but that does not have the consciousness, the intention, or the awareness that comes from the soul, the hand is not going to function. So matter provides form and capability. The soul provides consciousness, direction, and purpose. Hand without soul, what will it be? It will be like a machine which can move but has no purpose or awareness. In other words, I would say more like artificial limb. But a hand with soul would be aware, intentional, will be capable of making a choice, creativity, and compassion. So when the matter and the soul is together, in other words, body acts in the world with both physical capability and conscious direction. The problem is with our disturbed mind, which distorts the reality. Only a still mind reflects the truth. In other words, sthir chitte paramatma prakate. Think of a lake on a windy day. The water looks broken, restless, unclear. When the wind stops, the lake reflects the sky perfectly. So the sky was never disturbed, only the surface was. So our mind is like that lake, and thoughts are our wind. Our thoughts are the wind. With the practice of Vihangam Yoga, the wind slowly settles, and when the mind becomes still, clarity appears naturally without any force. Quantum physics does not tell us how to meditate. What it does tell us is that reality is subtle. It is unpredictable, deeply interconnected. So what we see is based on our eyes and our ability to perceive through those eyes in the transient moment. So what you see is a snapshot. So everything that is going on is continuous and is unpredictable. But let's say if we see a shape or something, it is because it has become tangible through our attention in that moment. But Surveda tells us that, has told us already that intellect alone cannot grasp the truth. And in quantum physics, we are all about intellect. Whereas the Gyan of Vihangam Yoga is way beyond intellect. For example, the fragrance of a flower. When you enter a room with a flower, you may not see it immediately, but you experience it. You experience its fragrance, something which is invisible but becomes undeniable. So quantum physics tells us that not everything real is visible, but Vihangam Yoga, on the other hand, invites us to experience the subtle which cannot be seen but can be known directly. So it is beyond these 5 sense organs. I will use other examples in the sense of, Suryanshuji, do we still have time or we break here?
Please continue, Dr. Subhashi, please.
Okay. So it's also about perspective. You sit inside a train, another train starts moving beside you. For a moment, you feel that you are moving, but no, you are not. So the experience depends on the perspective. What Vihangam Yoga does, it helps us to step out of the false movement of the mind and rest in the observer itself. And here you are the observer sitting in that train. So quantum science discovered that reality depends on reference. Everyone's reality may be different for the same thing based on their point of reference. But Vihangam Yoga teaches us to find the right reference point, the awareness itself. Thoughts rise and fall. Emotions come and go. Yet something within us remains unchanged, watching quietly. The seer remains unmoving while the scene keeps changing, and meditation is learning to rest in the seer, in the observer. So once again, the quantum physics has tried to explain it from the point of reference, how things are different. But Vihangam Yoga is all about the seer, the observer, who is unmoving, even if everything around keeps changing. The observer is observing or is in the seer itself. Quantum physics stops at probability, which means, and I don't know if I remember this story correctly, if there is a cat in the box on the other side of the wall, until you have seen the cat, there could be multiple different probabilities. Cat may be dead, may be alive, may be out of the box, maybe inside the box. Cat may be busy catching a rat or something. So that is what quantum physics is all about, probability, reference points. But Swarveda begins with certainty, a certainty that is born out of direct realization. So Vihangam Yoga is the method that moves from mental knowledge to the lived truth. What our Swamiji has already mentioned, with full certainty, this will happen next and this will happen next as you proceed. And yeah, it is a Schrodinger's cat. Thank you, Utkarji. Thanks a lot. So I knew that I'm not very good with these things, physical aspects. So I had already requested, please keep telling me the mistakes I make. So without self-experience, truth is not attained. When it comes to experience, the belief is not required. It's only practice. In other words, Swanubhuti binu satya na pave. Let's say if radio breaks, music stops. But that doesn't mean that the music has disappeared from the world. It is only the reception that has stopped. Science has not yet explained consciousness. But Vihangam Yoga does not wait for explanation. It offers a direct experience of awareness beyond thoughts and body sensation. So you can see that two things are totally in different realms. For example, if you stir mud in the water, it becomes cloudy. If you stop stirring, clarity returns on its own. So when we meditate, we are not doing more, we are doing less. So we say that Vihangam Yoga begins with effortless observation at the tip of the nose, and the mind settles naturally. Quantum physics only humbles the intellect, but Swarveda dissolves the ego. And Vihangam Yoga gives us a way to sit silently and let truth reveals itself. शांत चित्त में सत्य वास करे. And I will end with this notion, with the last part, is that there is a teacher who is helping a kid to see moon. The teacher points to the moon. The student keeps looking at the finger. He doesn't know where to look, so the student keeps looking at the finger and misses the moon. So quantum physics is the finger, and Vihangam Yoga is looking at the moon. The science tells us that reality is mysterious. It is beyond what we can perceive. But meditation, it allows us to sit peacefully within that mystery. So there is no comparison, and there is no way quantum physics, as of now, would explain the science of consciousness. With these thoughts of mine, which are totally maybe my interpretation, misinterpretation, but these are mine, the intent is only to create a clarity, and I may not be fully accurate, but the intent is to create a clarity. And with these words in the holy feet of Sadgurudeo, my prayer, and thanking all of you for your patient listening, and looking forward to your comment, discussion, and learning from you, because I know there are so many learned people in our audience who can shed light much better than what I have discussed. And back to you, Sriyanshi. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Subhash Chandraji. I really, really want to thank you for sharing your knowledge and diving deep into such a complex topic, breaking it down for all of us to absorb the nuances in a very short time. And to Utkarsh ji's point, it's such a captivating talk. I would like to request if anyone has any questions or thoughts, or would like to share any of their narratives on similar lines, please feel free to unmute yourself and come forward.
Jai Sadgurudeo. I'm so sorry. Is it JSG? Please go ahead.
Yes, Mayaji, Jai Sadgurudeo, everyone. Thank you, Mayaji. I just wanted to share real quickly that this topic today is amazing. When I heard that Dr. Subhashi was doing like quantum physics and in regarding to like Vihangam Yoga, in 2021, when I crossed paths with Vihangam Yoga at the Delaware Temple, this is when my father had just passed away in June of 2021. And I would say since 2021, since him passing and being on this journey, that it's been so difficult to wrap my mind and my heart around the grief and the loss of him, like no longer being in our lives. Like we lived with him. So this was like a very, very close to the heart loss for my children and I and Dave G. And I'm coming in and I'm hearing like, the meaning of Vihangam, and it's like, this bird, and I'm seeing birds like cardinals in the sky, and just all these signs. And I've read about quantum entanglement, and it's just so comforting to know how everything is just so intricately connected, and energy just, never dissolves. It just goes on, and the soul goes on. And the comfort in that, and the comfort that I feel now in this topic coming to discussion. And I had to speak on that and share that. Also, if you Google Vihangam and it says it's a bird or anything moving in the sky, but it's also this panoramic view. And the view that I was having of things, and how it's so complex, and I couldn't wrap my mind around it, and it was making grief even harder for me at the time. And I'm reaching out, and I'm so outwardly like trying to figure out what's going on, like to place my grief. And here this whole time being in mute, that's what was brought to us, to me, to my family, to anybody coming in. It gives you that opportunity to be inward and to sit with your feelings and yourself. And I cannot express enough how much that means to me, and how much it meant to me. Dr. Subhash speaking, I always enjoy his stories very much. It puts things into easier perspective to hear stories, and to kind of have like a term put on like what you're thinking. And thank you so much, everybody. I really appreciate that today. Sadgurudeo.
Thank you, Jashi, for sharing your thoughts.
Jai Sadgurudev, Suryanshu ji.
Ji,
Ji.
please go ahead.
Yes, I have similar thoughts as Jessica ji. It's always so wonderful to hear from the perspective of science and the reality, the physical reality that we all live in, quantum physics, science, about the planets. We are so much into that realm, and it is always nice to hear when Subhashji says the path of Vihangam Yoga is something which is beyond the intellect. And he almost uses this favorite line of his in every satsang, and I have always liked hearing that from the mouth of a physician himself, and it makes me wonder, like in this busy, stressful lives of ours, we often forget, like, what spirituality entails. But whenever I remember Subhashji's words that this is something beyond the intellect, all the intellectual power, it just stops right there. And, and it makes us so light within that so many things need not have an answer to it, when we deep dive into that realm. So yes, thank you so much, Subhaji. And one question I have is, when you mention about the vibrations we feel, experiencing these great meditation technique that the guru, the master, has embodied us with. So, I have experienced it myself almost every time I meditate. There are vibrations, and there are some more subtler experiences, making me so grateful, thankful. But I have never actually asked this question, but today, it felt like, okay, maybe I should ask. I've never questioned my experiences in meditation, and I just take it and give it back to the gurus, the feet of the master, as it comes from him. He's the source of everything. But the question, the curiosity that I had was, is this vibration similar to what the other techniques or the master speak of, the Kundalini awakening, or is it something else, or is it not? How would you define these vibrations in the body? What actually happens within the body? Is it is something to do with chakras, or it is just one of the experiences? So I would like to hear some more about it, on the same lines.
Once again, thank you, Monica ji. And your question is tough. I can only share my interpretation. And we also have Vijay ji here. So if it is not correct, I'm sure Vijay ji will shed some light. So as you go through those water parks, you have to keep your hands next to you, and you have to acquire a certain posture, because the tunnel of those what is the right word for those water parks, where you go through the tunnel and finally you end in the water. Similarly, when you are meditating, and when you say meditation, as in you are doing or capable of doing what needs to be done, then from Muladhara chakra, it's difficult for me to explain that Muladhara chakra, the energy that goes upward, the energy that goes upward, it creates a lot of movement, because you're not sukshma yet. You are still loaded with these physical realm and your chit, antakaran, and everything. So you, in an attempt to purify yourself, where the energy could directly flow from Muladhara to upwards, it does create vibrations. And for certain people, it goes beyond that. You will see them, some people jumping at their place. So the only way to explain it would be for someone who has not seen Muladhara chakra, or has not seen that channel, but can only be experienced, is you are heading towards purity, and all those impurities that you have, the energy has to pass through that, and that jerky movement helps to ascend from Muladhara chakra upstairs to above. Thank you, and back to you, Monica ji, Suryanshu ji.
Yes, Subhaji, that really is helpful. I was, looking for that answer, because I never questioned why it feels like the shaking starts right where you said, at the Muladhara chakra, which I think is the base chakra, if I'm not mistaken, out of our 7 or 8 chakras we have in the body. So yeah, the vibration begins there, and it moves upwards. So yeah, thank you so much, Subhaji. You answered my question, and I am just very thankful for experiencing, and like I said, giving the experience back to the master, and not having any questioning in this, why as to how, and so. But this really helps me, my curiosity. Thank you so much, Subhashi. Back to you, Suryanshu ji.
Sure, Monica ji. And the other way it is understood is Makartar, is that as you are purifying yourself, you see the vibration, but if you continue to vibrate, you cannot get yourself on that ascending pathways, or the Makartar. So as your impurities are going out of you, the vibration gradually should decrease, and you become still to ascend on the Makartar. Okay, back to you, Suryanshu ji. Thank you.
Thank you, Monica ji.
Subhashi, this was an excellent explanation of Vihangam Yoga. You took us to the very root of Vihangam Yoga and really gave experience the sweet fragrance of it. It's amazing comparing the science of Vihangam Yoga with the quantum physics and science. It was a very good simile. And with a lot of similes and analog, you have explained how one can experience the very essence of ourselves. While I was listening to you, I was almost like in a meditation. I felt like I was experiencing the ultimate truth beyond the matter, which is what all the sciences do. Vihangam Yoga is the very root, and that root is experience when we not connect to it. It's a good way of saying connection, but it's reminded me of river meeting the ocean. River is not meeting the ocean. River is merging the ocean. And that's what I feel when I merge with that Chetan Shakti, the consciousness. It's not I who is experiencing it. It's the experience itself, observing it itself. And it's just amazing. It's been said so often in Swarveda, that blissful experience. And you have very well explained today. Thank you.
Thank you, my pleasure. With Sadhguru blessings. Thank you.
Jai Sadgurudeo, it's wonderful listening, and I'm fortunate to have part of, at least satsang, able to listen. And always, Subhashji, your response on any question enlighten us within. So thank you for that. But while, being short time here, definitely what I'm listening, everything is kind of reviving and refreshing and relearning, de-learning what it was, and that's, I don't know, just going on. And listening Hasmukhji again brought me there. But my thing is, I missed that cat thing, a part of it, so I wanted to hear again a little bit, if you could shed a brief. I don't want everybody to repeat that. I'm waiting still for the recording, but that Scrundier, what is that? I can't even say Scrundinger cat. That you explained something related clarify the Vihangam, the principle within. So please, if you could just tell that in a brief again. Thank you.
Sure, Mayaji. Utkarshji, would you like to shed light on Schrodinger's cat?
Sure, Jai Sadgurudev, everyone.
Yes.
I'll take a stab, but please feel free to keep me honest, Dr. Chandra. So Schrodinger's cat, Schrodinger was a physicist, a theoretical physicist who gave an example that of the nature of matter, the way quantum physics explains it, that anything can exist as a matter or a wave. So the equation, we know that Einstein's equation E equals mc square, where energy directly equates to the mass times the square of the speed of light. So giving us an idea that matter and energy are interchangeable. So Schrödinger put forth a hypothetical scenario that if you have a cat in a box, then it is there's an equal likelihood that speaking of probabilities again, there's probability that the cat might be alive or might be dead within the same box. But the observer, us, standing outside the box, we won't know whether the cat is alive or the cat is dead until we open the box. When we open the box again, then there's those two possibilities, right? We might observe the cat as alive, or we might observe the cat as dead. So from what I understand, spirituality gives us a way that because everything is connected, there are both probabilities, both outcomes are equally possible. Vihangam Yoga, through meditation, from what I understand, is that we get the opportunity to manifest a certain outcome based on based on affecting, tuning our own perception. So the cat might be alive, the cat might be dead. I don't care, but at certain point, if I am interested in a certain outcome, I do certainly wish to see the cat alive, even though the cat might have been blocked in that box for, say, many, many days without food, water. When I begin to open the box to get to my observation point, through meditation, through my own perception, and through manifesting, I might be able to influence the outcome to a certain way that because matter can exist both as matter as well as wave. And Dr. Subhaji, I know I'm not explaining it as well as you can, but that is the idea behind how this example was put forth for quantum physicists to understand that both scenarios are acceptable unless the observer goes in and opens it up and in that point freezes his perception to be able to see what exists.
Thank you, Utkarji. I could not have explained with the detail the essence of this that I was bringing forward, that quantum physics stops at probability. It may be this, it may be that, there could be 100 different scenarios based on the observer. But Swarveda begins with certainty. Certainty that is born of direct realization, which means once you ascend in the path of Vihangam Yoga, it's not about probabilities, what may or may not. It's about the method that is offered by our Swamiji Sadgurudeo to move from the mental knowledge to the lived truth, the truth that he has experienced, the truth that he wants to share with us. So once again, the great difference between quantum physics and science of consciousness of Vihangam Yoga, it has nothing to do with probability. It is a science of certainty. If you do what is taught to you, यदि विधिवत तुम साधन करियो अमर लोक पहुंचाऊंगा, that's a certainty in the statement itself that if you do this, this is the only outcome and I will make it happen. Thank you. Mayaji, I hope to some extent me and Utkarji were able to answer it. And back to you.
जी बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद. Thank you both. जय सद्गुरुदेव.
Jai Sadgurudeo, I wanted to just add a few things on the quantum. I'm not an expert on that, but I think at some point this can be a subject for more deeper discussion also, because this is a big paradox in the scientific community, and it has been for the last 100 plus years from Einstein and maybe even Schrödinger. There's a phenomena called wave particle duality, and the fringe effect is where everything started actually. So when they put a microscope, when they pass the light through the double slit, you will always see the fringe pattern, right? Interference pattern because of the wave. It's very typical, very, very commonsensical actually, because any electromagnetic wave will create that. And but then when they put a scope to understand, like where the electrons, which slit are they passing from? So they were shooting electron one at a time, and when they were not observing, it was still forming an interference pattern, like the light, like the photons. But for the electrons, the understanding at that time was that it's a particle, like an atom, like a molecule, like a piece of a football. So they were thinking like that, but they found that it was forming that same interference pattern. And so then they got curious that, okay, let's see. We thought that this is supposed to be like a ball. Then we should find out which slit it is going out from. And then they put a scope to identify that. And then they saw that the behavior of electron changed. They can literally see which slit it is going through, and it is imitating the pattern of the slit as opposed to the wave pattern. So that was the conundrum at that time. And then this thought experiments were happening, which is part of this Schrodinger cat, where they put in, like, inside a box, they put a radioactive material, which was a highly radioactive, which can decay within 1 hour. Actually, 50% decay happening within 1 hour. And they put a cat. I think somebody may have tried that experiment, but it was actually a thought experiment. And then when it hits the 50% decay, then it triggers a Geiger clock, which is actually releasing a poison. So with that should kill the cat. And so while that whole thing is happening inside the box, nobody knows exactly what is the state of the cat until you open the box. But literally what they're trying to understand there is that, so as you can see, that it really started from that, and then from the electron experiment with the fringe, and then they began to understand, curious about particle, and then they found that until you observe that particle, it is unpredictable. It can be in multiple states, and that is the concept that they're using in quantum computing, where an atom can have infinite number of states, and you can actually measure infinite number of states on that and use that to calculation. The beauty here is that when you become curious and observe that atom, then you will exactly know the actual state. So you can actually record that. And similarly, you can store multiple states. And you can, when you observe with those kind of at those states, then you can actually count that. So you can imagine that it opens up a huge explosion in complex calculation. So now they can do weather forecasting and more complex forecasting issues. Like today, the forecasting is not very accurate. If the hurricane is moving, it changes direction. But with that thing, you can actually begin to predict that more accurately and forecast it, like down the days and all that. So you can see that there's a lot of things. But the issue is that the scientists don't understand why that exists. And that is where the biggest challenge is. But they're not honest enough to begin and find the very purpose of the meditation. And I think that's what we were touching yesterday also in the Hindi Satsang. That, you can imagine that who told the electron to change its behavior? Oh, somebody's watching. You better shape up. It's like when a parent enters into the house, the children are studying, but the parents are out. The children are fighting, running, and everything is happening, making all kinds of stuff. So somehow the particles have that kind of a behavior. That means they're omnipresent. They could be doing anything. There's a huge interconnectedness that exists. And they have the intelligence that, wait a minute, if somebody watches you, you better behave like this. So, and scientists know that. And that's called a wavical mystery. They call it wave particle. And the way those particles, even though they have that wave particle duality, and what Schrodinger's contribution there was that, you have a wave for light, which is massless. So for massless particles, there's a certain equation for the, to actually analyze the wave. But that equation doesn't fit into the electron, which is mass. Any particle which has a mass, that same equation cannot be used to describe its wave. So that was the Schrodinger's equation, which was actually designed, which modeled the prediction, the wave model for mass-based particles. But still, it's a wave, Schrodinger's wave equation. But then the other one is the electromagnetic equation. So I think it goes like that. But I guess the beauty about the Vihangam Yoga is that what Uncle Ji was also trying to explain yesterday, that everything emerges from this subtleness. And I was actually talking to Uncle Ji, who was saying that from Akshar, there's a Chetan Dhwani. When Paramatma begins the start of the Srishti, the Chetan Dhwani begins. And from that, 5 Dhwanis emerge, Soham, Niranjan, and so on. And there's 10 more that happens after that, which is Nad. So you can see that how the emergence is trickling down into the Prakriti. And then there's a emergence of all the Prakritic matters. So everything is coming from there. And so somehow people, when they are in deep meditation, looks like they're already progressing through those experiences. And if the scientists become just more honest and begin to read the Veda and the spiritual dimension, then it's no longer a mystery it should not have been a mystery anymore. So I think that I just wanted to kind of shed at least the perspective that I did some reading on that, and I just wanted to kind of share. So many of the things are definitely very, very theoretical for me, but I think the answer, it will always remain a mystery, wave particle mystery. It will always, so the scientists will be able to make use of those things to do computing, and then what happens, then they get lost in their own aham, that, oh, we are making wonders, wonderful things, but they will never understand very basics of fundamental of the existence. They will know how to use it. They will know how to use the property of the superposition of the atoms or the particles, and use that to develop the quantum computing industry, but without even understanding like why it is, how that is behaving and where it is emerging from. So I think so that conundrum will continue, looks like. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Niranjanji. Thanks a lot for giving us the detail. Thank you.
I have a suggestion and request. If we could have Subhashji talk next time also, this was very inspiring. Thank you.
Thank you, Hasmukh Patel ji. Thank you, Maya ji. Thank you, Utkarsh ji. Thank you, Niranjan ji. Like it's such an insightful experience, and to understand these nuances and topics which are so complex, extremely like broken down for common people to understand it. It is really amazing to hear such deep, thoughtful experiences and topics. I would like to give a big thank you to everyone who joined in this discussion and took part in this session. Your excitement, thoughtful questions, and so many insightful experiences, your learnings and knowledge has really helped all of us and get some of the experience. Together, we are building a strong base about these complex topics and sharing the life-changing power that we all know Vihangam Yoga is. Anyone who has joined the session for the first time, is there anyone who has joined the session for the first time? Kindly come forward and introduce themselves. Just trying to see on the chat.
Hello, good morning and namaskar. My name is Pankaj Prasad and I live in Edison, New Jersey. By profession, I'm a bridge structural engineer. And I would love to join again. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Welcome. Pankaj Prasad is my mama, basically my mother's brother. So thank you, Mama, for joining. Now we have reached the last phase of today's satsang. I request everyone to sit down for Shanti part. In Shanti part, we chant for peace for everyone in this universe. May Sadgurudev bless the entire cosmos with peace, love, and prosperity. I would now request Jessica ji to recite the last few lines of Shanti part for us.
Yes, Gurudev. Shanti Path. Hey Prabhu Shanti Swarupa Shanti Shanti Maya Shanti 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 Jana Shanti Ho Purna Shanti Maya Shanti Hey Prabhu Shanti Pradana Kara Doro Sarva Shanti Deva Sada Phala Shanti Maya Shanti Shanti Sukha Shanti Boliye Sadgurudev Bhagavan Ki Jai.
Jai. Thank you, Jessica ji, for such a soulful recitation of Shanti part. I would like to thank all of you for joining today's satsang. I encourage everyone to ponder upon this complex and such an insightful topic that we discussed today. I'd like to extend a heartfelt thanks to Sulbha ji, Dr. Subhash Chandra ji, Jessica ji, Monica ji, Hasmukh Patel ji, Maya ji, and Utkarsh ji, and Niranjan ji as well, for their seva and active engagement in this session, for the team, and the team as well who has been behind for organizing and coordinating this satsang. I pray to Sadgurudev for peaceful and spiritual week ahead for all of us. See you all next Sunday at 9 a.m. EST on the same Zoom session. Have a wonderful day and week ahead. Jai Sadgurudev.